In my yard growing up, I remember our flowers in the garden beds were fake. They were just for decor. I also remember that we would compost. For example, I remember explicitly composting banana peels in a container that we had in our kitchen that had a plate covering it. And I remember taking that little compost container from the kitchen outside to our yard to just sort of a big container outside that was very stinky. But I have no idea what we did with it, and I have no idea why we did it.
We have found this to be much more efficient. We used to keep them in the high tunnel, and we would just, the high tunnel would get, like someone would just cut it and go in and take them. This helps to open up the soil. So this is super hard here, so it's not going to work well. But you would sink it into your bed that you're going to work. And again, this is not going to work so well. But you get up on it and try to just get your weight to have it sink down deep.
So you use it this way. It's kind of get up, like we use it a lot for feeding, just like surface stuff. But you have to keep doing it because obviously the roots are still under. But it's really good at clearing like patches of plants that we don't necessarily want to be growing with the ones that we.
It's holding a root slayer, so this could be used for
Root slayer.
roots. This one's a great one for when we're going into plant. It sort of levels the ground. That we use these a lot for cover cropping. We love those. All you know of is this kind of a rake. When you're at home and your parents are like, please go out and rake the leaves.
Yeah.
Similar to what B is holding. That's a root slayer. This one's called a spear-headed spade. It's a little sharper. We use these a lot when we're just trying to get into a small area. And this is pretty effective. It goes pretty deep. You want to use the appropriate technology for the job, right? And so you got to know that, and you'll learn that. And we want to use the best tool, and we want to know how to use it appropriately in ways that feel good in your body. Like, you don't want to hurt your back. If you're doing this day after day, when you're on farm crew, it's exhausting. And so you want to do it in a way that feels good in your body. You're not hurting yourself. You're able to move well.
To have a sailing team that like goes down to the Chicago Yacht Club 3 times a week.
Today we harvested potatoes and I used the shovel to do it, and then we're using broad forks to mix up the soil so it's not like as hard, and then using whatever that's called, I forgot, to probably even things out and spread things evenly distributed. Here's the difference between the molded one and one with not mold or less mold. And to snip this, we are going all the way down there at the base of it, and we're like cutting it right there and like moving it. And there's like, it's really like, it's spreading. You can see where it's going, and like how some of them only have more, while some have a little less. Like, it's just slowly spreading and spreading.
Super easy. Right. Step 2.
The browns.
We do have this little steep now. I want to get a brown.
Oh, okay. That's a good idea. Yeah,
The
yeah.
color code is so
Yeah,
nice.
since it said we talk about browns, but it's in a green bin.
Exactly.
That's a good idea. All right, I'll work on it.
So to mix browns in here, the carbon sources are, we got a bunch of like sawdust from facilities and from theater, from some of their products. We got leaves and sticks and all that. Perfect. It's approximately the same amount of volume. We're not super worried about it here, 1-to-1. Probably optimally 2-to-1 in the bigger system, but we're going to blend batches, so we'll get the right recipe. Okay, critical step coming up. Very good.
Securing it again. Yeah.
Because if this latch does not go on,
We've done
Bad things happen when we spin this thing. It's how you can do it together, but no, it's nice, the workout section. And so what this is doing is just kind of mixing the materials and agitating, and it does aerate some of it. You can, definitely, right? It's releasing, because it was getting very dense.
Like of course, there's lots of names for things, so we're just kind of focusing in on what English names we know or Latin. What do you recognize? Cilantro, sweet basil, green bell pepper, right?
Oh, yeah. Now I see them.
And then muffins from those little ones. Now we're leaving the big ones so that we can just let them sort of dry on the stem here, and we'll use that for seed. Either seed for replanting for next year, or to make some musical instruments. They're really good for maracas.
Chili, chili, tomato, tomato.
So when we say prune them, at this point we would be taking off seed and flower, so production's going more to the leaf. It would be the same with the sweet basil. We would prune it here, just kind of clip it on the stem so that it. The name. This is Monarda fistulosa is the genus species, if you're using them.
They're very docile as long as you don't stand like right in front of their two entrances that are open, because then you're kind of blocking them from working. But as long as you're away, like they don't come and sting you. Their main job is to go and find nectar, because right now, especially, they're getting towards the end of the season where they're trying to like collect enough to make enough honey for the winter. And if they don't have enough honey, because they eat their honey over winter, but obviously we collect it as humans once they make too much, because there is such thing as like being honey bound, which means like they've produced like too much honey, and then that can cause swarming, and that means like part of the colony here like will go and find more space to like make a new colony, and they can also like drown in their own honey. So it's like good to collect the honey. And this system is a horizontal hive system instead of vertical. So we chose that because like more conventional farmers that are just like having bees for honey will use this vertical system because it's very good at like collecting the honey, and the way the like bees organize themselves, like it's just like more honey ends up being produced. But it's very hard one to work with as humans, because they're very heavy. You have to like lift, like these things can get really heavy. In there, yeah, like it's magic. It's just magic. Talk about regenerative agriculture. Like this is just like, wow, we live in an amazing world that we can grow these plants and then look at all the seed, like from one little spike of flowers. So much potential if we take care of them well, and if we preserve them well.
Teas or no?
Well, you could put the flower and the leaf in a tea for sure. I've never had the seed in a tea. I've only had the leaf and flower, mostly the leaf. So there's Thai basil. Here's sweet basil. It'll be really similar. You can kind of see them in there. Thanks, Nicole. So Thai basil, if someone's doing that. This is sweet basil. It'll be a similar process, and we'll let them dry out. Ideally, you're harvesting when they're mature and in their best state. These are the seeds that you'd want to continue, the ones that are the ones that you like the best, I guess. We'll put it that way.
The soil here has been really compacted since it hasn't been used yet. So it's sometimes like when I water it, it like sort of just runs off. But hopefully with having these plants here, it like changes sort of like the formula of the soil.
True.
That's also like one of the constraints with like adding this to campus, like because so much of the soil is compacted, it would really need like
Some soil work first.
Yeah.
So, Tara, you want to go ahead? So let's go ahead and do a little bit. These were from green oaks, these logs. You just come in and drill holes, and you put in inoculant, which is the spawn of the mycelium from the mushroom, and you pack it in there, and then we seal it with like a soy wax.
Yeah.
And then within a year, usually, if it gets enough moisture and all the optimal conditions, they'll flush after a good rain. So we've had lots of flushes of production. Not all of them are going to have that this little part pointing upward like that, but most of them will. So you'll see the little tip. That's the part that's you're gonna put it in the ground with that tip pointing up. Once we get this leveled off a little bit more, we're gonna come in and apply our screened compost. We'll come in and start applying that tonight, even at volunteer hours, and get this really organized and ready to go for all the planting tomorrow. If we were coming in to do the planting, we determine our spacing. So if let's say we have 500 we're going to want to put in, we'd want to figure out that spacing. So maybe we could either go 5 across, and then we'd have to go 100 down, or it's like we want to think about how are we going to do this? How are we going to fit all of this garlic in here? And we want to keep an 8-inch spacing, 6 to 8-inch spacing, so we could come through if we needed to weed it with us. It would be easy without nicking the plant itself. So giving space to come in and weed is really nice. We don't often do a whole lot of weeding with it because we'll come in with some mulch, so it's not that bad. Once we determine our spacing, and we'll finish how many we're going to do across, we'll do that tonight if you come volunteer hours at 4 o'clock. We would come in, once we've worked the soil pretty good, kind of just nestle it in there so the tip is sticking out. And then once we don't cover it yet because we want to see where they all are. So, because often what happens if you've got 10 people working on it, it gets really crazy lines. And we do want to try to keep it in a straight line. We bring the next one over. I tend to just do this for my spacing. Give the minimum of that amount of space between your pinky and your thumb. We're not going to actually measure it, but I can do that and get a sensibility of 6 to 8 inches, and then come in with the next one, and we'd come across, usually working with someone going down the row. So someone might do 3 or 4 across, the other one's doing that. And so you meet in the middle and you keep a nice line, like think of it as like a square. You come in with the next one. You'd nestle it in once you do your spacing. Just check it before we go to cover it. And then we would come back and cover it. So there's that tip. You can take it. We haven't been having super cold winters, and we are going to mulch this. But what we've been doing is typically just covering it where that tip is. We don't see the tip anymore. Kind of just tamp it just a little bit, and then we're going to come in with the straw to mulch it. Give it a 4 or 5 inch thickness of that straw. That's going to protect it going into winter. That's worked with us pretty well. Here, and we'll see if Chef Lisa wants any more. We took some, like you could steam fish, or
I really want them to.
When we were picking the garlic after we harvested it in July, we tried distinguishing between the ones that look super good. So that was, I think that's good. Do you want to continue on more? Thank you.
शायद इवनिंग या फिर मॉर्निंग में सही है मज़ा तो आएगा लास्ट ईयर ठीक है लहसुन जल्दी चली गई मम्मी बहन क्या लोड है मम्मी गांड मार रही मम्मी बोलेगी ज़्यादा फनी हो रहा है क्या
I feel like I'm just gonna wait till after lunch, honestly, because you all excited for winter term? Yeah.